This week, Jack Stewart will tell us about the famous Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots. Besides being a beautiful red-headed woman, Mary was headstrong and tragically unlucky. She married 3 times and had one son, James. Mary was executed by beheading in 1587. Her son James is best known for the King James Bible that bears his name. Let's hear about this exciting chapter in the history of the Stewart Kings.
James V, King of Scotland, reigned from 1513 to 1542. When King James IV was killed at Flodden, his son, James V, was only 1 year old. His mother and his stepfather kept control over him until he managed to escape in 1528. Then James V took the crown at age 16 and began to rule by himself. He was a young and vigorous monarch who continued to follow the religion of his ancestors, Catholicism, at a time when the Protestant cause was gaining favor in Scotland. James traveled incognito around his realm, dressed as a peasant and calling himself the Good Man of Ballingeash. In 1536 he married. He had already fathered at least 9 illegitimate children by a series of mistresses. He married Princess Madeleine of France, and she died the next year. Then he married a tall, well-built French woman, Marie of Guise. She had 2 sons by James, and they both died in infancy. At the same time, the English king, Henry VIII, was beginning to destroy the Catholic Church in England and invaded Scotland to get them to follow his lead. James marched with his army to the Battle of Solway Moss on the Scots-English border in 1542. A much smaller English force routed the Scots. Although he himself had not been present at the battle, James suffered a complete nervous collapse. He returned to his palace with a high fever. When a messenger came to tell him that his pregnant queen had given birth to a daughter instead of the hoped-for son, he believed that the Stuart dynasty was at an end. Quote, "It came with a lass, and it will go with a lass," unquote, he said, remembering how the crown had come to his family through Marjorie Bruce. He feared that no woman could ever rule over this troubled nation. When King James V of Scotland died a week later, he left only his 6-day-old infant daughter Mary as his heir. Mary Stuart, Queen of Scotland, reigned from 1542 to 1567. Mary Stuart, born on December 8, 1542, was 6 days old when she became Queen of Scots. Her mother sent her to France in 1548, where she was educated in the French court. And that is when the spelling of the royal family name of Stuart was changed to Stuart, shortened because the French did not have the letter W in their alphabet. Tall, graceful, and quick-witted, Mary married the son of the French king, the Dauphin, Francis, in 1558. When King Henri II of France died in 1559, his son, the Dauphin, became the King of France, and Mary became the Queen of France as well as Scotland. The young king died the next year of an ear infection, and Mary, now a 19-year-old widow, went back to Scotland. A great deal had happened in Scotland while Mary was gone. She had been able to practice her Catholic religion in France, but Scotland was now an officially Protestant country after religious reforms led by John Knox. Besides being a beautiful red-headed woman, Mary was headstrong and tragically unlucky. She ruled successfully until 1565, when she married Lord Darnley. He was a total jerk. caused a great deal of grief to Mary and the royal household by his carousing and petulant behavior. The birth of Mary and Darnley's son James did nothing to improve their relationship. Darnley was murdered in 1567, just outside the walls of the castle, and people suspected that Mary was somehow implicated in that crime. 3 months later, she married her third husband, the Earl of Bothwell, generally believed to be Darnley's murderer. The Protestant leaders confronted her and caused her to abdicate in favor of her infant son. She had to turn the boy James over to regents, members of royal families all vying to bring up the young king. Mary escaped from Scotland in 1568 and sought shelter from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I in England. Instead, she was held captive for 19 years, imprisoned in the Tower of London, and executed by beheading in 1587. She was 44 years old. Mary's son grew up to become King James VI of Scotland. James VI, King of Scotland and England, reigned from 1567 to 1625. James, the only son of Mary, Queen of Scots, was born in 1566. He was baptized Charles James on 17th of December, 1566, in a Catholic ceremony held at Stirling Castle. Less than a year later, he saw his mother for the last time. He was 13 months old when he was crowned King of Scots after her forced abdication. From this time on, he was brought up by a series of regents. His childhood was disturbed by nobles, Protestants, and Catholics, all wanting James to grow up to suit their own wishes. He was imprisoned for 2 years and tutored by an ultra-Protestant faction. But he grew up to be a shrewd, wary individual who has been described as the most effective ruler Scotland ever had. His ambition was to succeed Elizabeth I on the throne of England, so he made only a formal protest when she signed his mother's death warrant in 1587. He had some eccentricities, like the case of the North Berwick witches. In 1590, James VI presided over a witchcraft trial. James became personally involved in this particular trial because he believed that Francis Stewart, 5th Earl of Bothwell, had plotted with a coven of witches to bring about his destruction. While sailing to Scotland to marry James, Anne of Denmark's ship met with trouble, and James went to rescue her. On their return, their ship was nearly capsized in stormy seas. This was said to have happened while a coven of witches gathered on the Auld Kirk Green in North Berwick. A confession from a schoolmaster named John Fian implicated Bothwell. This was enough to convince James that there had been a supernatural plot to raise a storm and kill him and his bride-to-be. It seemed that the devil himself wanted the king dead. Fian's confession was extracted under torture. When he finally faced execution, John Fian recanted. He took back everything he had confessed, saying he only told the tales for fear of torture. King James personally questioned some of the accused men and women. He later wrote a book about magic, sorcery, and witchcraft called Demonology. William Shakespeare was a contemporary of James, and it is thought that Shakespeare wrote his famous play, Macbeth, when James became King of England. It is a tale of witches, Scottish kings, and murderous plots. When Shakespeare introduced the three witches in Macbeth, they were chanting over their cauldron, "Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble." The comparison to what was going on in James's Scotland was all too much like that. Double toil and trouble abounded. James's realm was severely impoverished, so much so that when he celebrated his marriage in 1590, he had to go around begging for meat and carriages and even to borrow a decent pair of tights from the Earl of Moray. In spite of all this, he had a happy marriage, he gained power and patronage, and he lived to a uniquely old age for a Stewart king. From 1597 until 1637, Scotland lived at peace, something they had not had for 300 years before that. When Queen Elizabeth of England died in 1603, she left him the Kingdom of England. He then became known as King James I of England and James VI of Scotland. He is best known for the best-selling book of all time, the King James Bible, that bears his name as a lasting memorial. He died in 1625. He was 59 years old. Charles I, King of England and Scotland, reigned from 1625 to 1649. Charles, the second son of James VI and grandson of Mary, Queen of Scots, was born in 1600. His father, James VI of Scotland, moved his family to England when he inherited the throne of England in 1603 and became James I of England. The oldest son, Henry, died in 1612, so when his father died in 1625, Charles succeeded to the title of King Charles I of England. He never came back to Scotland until 1633 for his coronation as King of Scots. Charles had a stammer and was a self-righteous ruler. He was not well liked by his subjects, and when he married a Roman Catholic, this only made matters worse. He had problems with the Scottish Presbyterians and the Covenant of 1643. Civil war erupted in England. Charles was arrested and charged with treason and died by public beheading in 1649. Charles II, King of Scotland and England, reigned from 1651 to 1685. Charles II was born in 1630, but after his father's death in 1649, Oliver Cromwell ran the country. Charles was crowned King of Scots in 1651 and crowned King of England in 1660. The early years of Charles's reign saw a major epidemic of bubonic plague, which hit the country in 1665, killing 100,000 in England. Charles's foreign policy was to strike a balance of alliances with France and the Dutch. He signed a secret treaty under which he would declare himself a Catholic, and England would side with France against the Dutch. He was forced to withdraw this treaty in the face of Parliament's opposition. Then, in 1677, Charles arranged the marriage of his niece Mary to the Dutchman William of Orange to re-establish his own Protestant credentials. Throughout Charles's reign, religious issues dominated the political scene. Anti-Catholicism was widespread. Catholics were prevented from being members of Parliament. Charles got away with being a Catholic by the simple expedient of keeping it secret. Charles died of a stroke in 1685 and became a Roman Catholic on his deathbed.
Next week, we'll hear more about Mary II, Anne Stuart, the Old Pretender, and Charles Edward Stuart, better known as Bonnie Prince Charlie. Please join us.